Hey everyone, Dwight Kilpack here with firefighterinterviewcoaching.com. Today I want to talk about how to answer firefighter interview questions and give you some examples of what a good interview answer actually looks like. I'm finding more and more candidates show up to their interview prepared. They've done their research. There's plenty of information out there online. They've researched the commonly asked interview questions and they've practiced. They've come up with answers that they feel like are correct. And they probably practice with a family member or maybe even a firefighter that they know, and when they show up, they give those answers, and routinely they're falling right there in the middle of the pack with everybody else. They're not getting invited to Chiefs interviews, and ultimately they're not the ones that are ending up with the job offers. If that's you, and I bet it is because you're watching this video, don't worry about it. We'll figure out how to get you past that finish line. I call this a 70-20-10 rule. 70% of candidates, pretty much all sound the same. They've all done their research. They've all come up with an interview answer that sounds pretty good, and they feel like it's the right answer to the question. But the words might change a little bit, but ultimately the answer sounds the same from one candidate to the next. And it makes it really difficult for the interview panel to decide who they want to hire. There's 20%. Those are the people who it might be their first interview, or they're just not prepared at all. Those people aren't really our competition. And then there's that top 10%. The 10%, those are the people who are going to get invited to those Chiefs interviews, and those are the people who are going to get hired. And that's really where we want to be. Those are the people that go the extra step, and they're taking these questions and they're proving their answers to the panel through personal stories and examples from their work history and their background, their education. And then they're talking a little bit about themselves. So when they actually leave their interview, the panel feels like they know them. They believe them a lot more than they believe somebody who just gave them the basic example. And ultimately, those are the people that are going to move on in the process. And that's where we need to be if we're going to get the job. If that's not you right now, don't worry about it. I'm about to show you what a good interview answer looks like. The question that we're going to go through is, what skills or attributes do you have that would make you a good firefighter? You've probably heard this before or something like it. And I'm going to give you some examples of that 70% answer, and then I'm going to give you a better example as well. All right, guys, the first example that I'm going to give you is that 70% answer. This is the answer that I hear most often. And ultimately, there's nothing wrong with the answer other than the fact that you're not going to get hired with it, but you're technically giving them the correct information. The descriptors might change a little bit. The headlines in your answer might be a little bit different from one to the next, but ultimately it really all bleeds together, and it makes it really hard for the panel to differentiate one candidate from the next. And ultimately, you're not going to get hired with it. So if this sounds anything like you, don't worry. Like I said, I'm going to give you a good example here afterwards. But this is our 70% answer. So the question was, what skills or attributes do you have that would make you a good firefighter? All right, here we go. 70% answer. I'm extremely hardworking, I'm dedicated, and I'm passionate. I always give 110% to everything I do. I'm always the first one to show up and the last one to leave. When I set my mind to something, nothing can stop me and nothing will stand in my way. All my former employers and coaches can tell you that I was always the hardest worker they had ever had, and I always gave it my all. They might go on from there and give you a little bit more detail, but understand that this didn't really tell you anything about the person. And to be honest with you, the panel might not believe you. Anybody can roll off the couch and tell you they're extremely hardworking, dedicated, and passionate, and they may have never worked hard at anything in their life. It doesn't take anything to say that. We have to go a step further, and we have to prove it with those stories and examples from our personal life and our work history. And I'll show you here in just a second what that looks like. All right, now I'm going to give you an example using the same descriptors that they used in the last one, but we're going to go a step further and we're going to prove it to the panel using stories and examples from real life and in work history. First, a little caveat. I don't like when people use hardworking, dedicated, and passionate just because we hear it so often. I'd rather you actually use tangible things from your real life. But if those were what you chose, or just because we use that in the last one, we're going to show you how to prove it to the panel. Understand too that this is not me. I've never played basketball a day in my life. I certainly didn't get grades that were this good, but I just wanted to show you kind of how to prove the hardworking answer here. Okay, better answer. I'm very hardworking, dedicated, and passionate. I always give an all-out effort. 2 years ago, I graduated from Colorado State University. During my time there, I worked a full-time job at a local restaurant and was promoted to shift lead due to my performance. I was also on the basketball team. We practiced every day before class, and we were required to work out multiple times a week. I was a starter on the team as a sophomore, and although I may not have been the best player on the team, I played in nearly every game. It was important for me to also keep my grades up, and I wanted to be a good role model for what a student athlete should be. I was able to maintain a 3.8 GPA, and I obtained a bachelor's degree in business while I was there. School never came easy to me, and I often found that myself studying late nights or on the bus after games. But like I said, it was very important to me to be that student athlete and to get good grades and ultimately graduate at the top of my class. All right, we could go on from there and we could talk more and more, but understand the panel now knows this person got good grades in school. They've graduated college and they have a degree. That person was a basketball player and they played at a collegiate level, and it showed them some work experience. All this from this example shows and proves to the panel that this candidate was extremely hardworking and dedicated. This probably isn't you, right? This was just something that I made up. Maybe you've got a history or a background in construction, and you understand how to use tools, or you understand building construction. All these are skills that you can talk about, and you can go in to prove and talk about your work history and really let the panel learn more about you. Um, maybe you were a mechanic and you understand how engines work and you'd make a good engineer one day. Again, it's good skills there, and you can talk to the panel a little bit more about you, and they're going to learn some stuff about you that they might not have known when you walked in that day. And if you gave that basic answer, they would have never learned anything about this. So that's just a basic example of what a good interview answer looks like. I want you to go a step further. I want you to look at your background, look at what you've done, and you need to really prove to the panel with all these questions, no matter what they ask you, with those stories and examples. Like I said, that's just one, and we're going to go through more videos. But that's just a good starting point for you for now. The next video is going to be how to prepare for the firefighter interview. So if you're still struggling, don't worry, that's coming up next. But for now, go ahead and subscribe to this channel so you'll catch it when it comes out. And if you haven't yet, visit my website, firefighterinterviewcoaching.com. There's a lot of free resources on there that'll help you get ready for your next firefighter interview. Thanks for tuning in.